My sister dumped her kids in a taxi after I refused to babysit her kids, then one police call. And what happened next forced her to face the law. I said no to babysitting my sister's kids, so she dumped them in a taxi to my address anyway, except the driver got it wrong. 3 days later, I got the call that destroyed her. This is Detective Sarah Barnes with Metro Police Department. We have 2 minors here who were dropped at 425 Oak Street approximately 3 hours ago. They had a note with your contact information. The words didn't make sense at first. I was standing in my hotel room at 8:47 a.m. on a Saturday, halfway through getting dressed for the opening session of a marketing conference I'd registered for 6 months ago. I'd paid $800 for the ticket, booked the hotel, blocked off my entire weekend. I'm sorry, what? My hand froze on my blazer zipper. 2 children, ages 6 and 4. They say their names are Jake and Emma Morrison. The note says they were supposed to be dropped at 425 Oak Street, but no one answered the door. A homeowner found them crying on her porch and called 911. My stomach dropped through the floor. I live at 425 Oak Avenue, not Oak Street. Those are completely different neighborhoods. Silence on the line. Then Detective Barnes's voice went cold. Professional cold, the kind that meant something very bad had happened. So, you're saying these children were sent to the wrong address apparently, but I didn't send them anywhere. I don't know how they got there. Ma'am, can you verify their identities, full names, and date of birth? My hands started shaking. Jake Morrison, born March 15, 2018. Emma Morrison, born September 3, 2020. They're my nephew and niece. My sister Rachel's kids. And where is their mother? I have no idea. That was a lie. I knew exactly where Rachel was, wine country with her husband Mark on a surprise romantic getaway because I'd refused to babysit. Ma'am, we need a guardian at the station immediately. These children have been alone for over 3 hours. They're frightened and one of them is asking for you. I grabbed my keys, didn't even change out of my pajama pants and conference blazer. Just shoved my feet into sneakers and ran. The conference could wait. Those babies were alone and scared because of my sister's reckless entitlement. I'd been working in marketing for 8 years when everything with Rachel finally exploded. Good job, Director of Digital Strategy at a mid-sized agency. Made $73,000 a year. Had my own apartment in a decent neighborhood. No husband, no kids, just me and my career and my carefully built life. Rachel was my older sister, 37 to my 33. Married to Mark, software engineer, made good money, generally decent guy who'd gotten trapped in Rachel's orbit like everyone else. They had 2 kids. Jake was 6, Emma was 4. Sweet kids, I loved them, but Rachel had always believed the world revolved around her convenience. Growing up, she was the golden child. Got the better bedroom, the new clothes while I got hand-me-downs, the car on her 16th birthday while I worked at Dairy Queen to buy my own. Mom and Dad thought the sun rose and set on Rachel. Meanwhile, I was expected to be grateful for scraps of attention. Your sister needs support, Mom would say whenever I complained. She's going through a lot. Rachel was always going through a lot. But the lot was usually self-created drama that somehow became everyone else's responsibility to fix. The babysitting thing had been escalating for months. It started small. Can you watch the kids for an hour while I run errands? Then it became entire evenings. Mark and I need a date night. You're not doing anything, right? I'd say yes because I felt guilty. Because family helps family. Because saying no to Rachel meant dealing with her meltdown and Mom's disappointed phone call. But 3 weeks ago, I'd finally set a boundary. Rachel had called on a Thursday at 2:47 p.m. while I was in a client meeting. 7 missed calls. I'd called her back during my lunch break. What's wrong? Is someone hurt? I need you to watch the kids this weekend. Mark booked us a surprise trip to wine country, some boutique hotel in Napa. We leave Friday. I can't. I have that marketing conference I've been talking about for months. The one in San Francisco. Cancel it. Rachel, I paid $800 for the registration. I'm speaking on a panel about social media strategy. This is important for my career, and your family isn't important. That's not what I said. Sounds like exactly what you said. Family comes first, Morgan. Or it should. But I guess your career matters more than your niece and nephew. My jaw clenched. I'm not canceling a work conference I registered for 6 months ago because you need a last-minute babysitter. I'm asking you as your sister to find someone else. You're so selfish. Her voice went cold, sharp. What's more important than being there for family? What's more important than Jake and Emma? Rachel, that's not fair. She hung up on me. I'd stared at my phone for a full minute. Angry, guilty, relieved. I'd set a boundary. Finally, I thought that was the end of it. I was so wrong. The police station was a gray brick building in a neighborhood I'd never been to. 43 minutes from my hotel, I'd driven like a maniac, still wearing pajama pants, hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel. Detective Barnes met me in the lobby. Late 40s, black woman, sharp eyes, the kind of cop who'd seen everything and wasn't impressed by excuses. "Miss Carter, that's me." "Where are they?" "Follow me." She led me through a maze of hallways, fluorescent lights, bulletin boards covered in missing person flyers, the smell of burnt coffee and industrial cleaner. We stopped at a door marked Interview Room B. Through the window, I could see them. Jake and Emma sitting at a table with a woman in a cardigan. Social worker probably. Jake was clutching his backpack, the blue one with dinosaurs on it. Emma's face was streaked with dried tears. Her Princess Sophia shirt had a stain on it. They looked so small. Detective Barnes opened the door. "Aunt Morgan." Both kids launched out of their chairs and ran at me. I dropped to my knees and caught them, held them tight. Jake was shaking. Emma was crying again, face buried in my shoulder. "You're safe now," I whispered. "I've got you. You're safe." "We were so scared," Jake said, voice muffled against my blazer. "The lady's house was wrong. She said we had to wait outside. Then the police came." "I know, buddy. I know. But you're safe now." I looked up at Detective Barnes. She was watching with an expression that was equal parts sympathy and fury. The social worker, name tag said Linda Vasquez, MSW, Child Protective Services, introduced herself. "Miss Carter, we need to document what happened here. Can the children stay with you while we take your statement?" "Of course. Whatever you need." We moved to a different room, more comfortable. Couches instead of metal chairs, toys in the corner. Emma immediately grabbed a stuffed bear and climbed into my lap. Jake sat pressed against my side. Detective Barnes pulled out a notebook. Linda Vasquez sat across from us with a tablet. "Miss Carter, can you explain your relationship to these children?" "I'm their maternal aunt. Rachel Morrison is my older sister. Mark Morrison is their father." "And where are the parents currently?" "Last I heard, they were in Napa Valley, wine country. Some surprise trip Mark planned." "Did you have any knowledge that these children would be sent to your residence today?" "No. Rachel asked me to babysit this past Thursday. I said no because I had a work conference scheduled. She hung up on me. I haven't spoken to her since." Detective Barnes wrote everything down. "So, to be clear, you explicitly refused to watch these children and your sister sent them to you anyway without confirming you'd be home or even verifying your address." "Apparently. That's child endangerment." Her voice was flat, cold. "Abandonment of minors. We're filing a report." My phone buzzed in my pocket. "Rachel." I declined the call. It rang again immediately, then again. "You should probably answer that," Detective Barnes said. I picked up, put it on speaker so the detective could hear. Finally. Rachel's voice was shrill, panicked. "Where are my kids?" "The taxi driver said he dropped them off hours ago." "Why aren't you answering?" "They're at a police station," I said, voice eerily calm. "Because you put them in a taxi to an address that doesn't exist." "What are you talking about?" "I live at 425 Oak Avenue, Rachel." "You wrote 425 Oak Street." "The driver took them to a completely different neighborhood 15 minutes away. A stranger found them crying on her porch because no one answered the door. She called 911. Silence on the line. I could hear Mark in the background. What's she saying? You didn't verify the address before putting your 6-year-old and 4-year-old in a taxi alone?" My voice was shaking now, anger bleeding through the calm. "And what taxi company accepts unaccompanied minors without questioning it? Don't you dare lecture me. This is your fault for refusing to help." Detective Barnes held out her hand for my phone. I gave it to her. "Mrs. Morrison, this is Detective Sarah Barnes with Metro Police Department. Your children were found abandoned at a stranger's residence after being dropped at an incorrect address. We're filing a child endangerment report. You need to return to the city immediately." I couldn't hear Rachel's response, but I watched Detective Barnes's face harden. "That's not optional, ma'am. If you fail to return within 24 hours, we're forwarding this case to Child Protective Services with a recommendation for emergency custody intervention. Do you understand?" More muffled shouting from the phone. 24 hours, Mrs. Morrison. I suggest you start driving." She hung up and handed my phone back. "She's blaming you," Detective Barnes said. It wasn't a question. She always does. The next several hours were a blur of paperwork and phone calls. Linda Vasquez interviewed the kids separately, asked them what happened, how they got in the taxi, whether Mom had told them where they were going. "Mom said Aunt Morgan was going to watch us," Jake explained, voice small. "She said it was a surprise. The taxi man asked if we knew where we were going, and Mom said yes." "Did your mom give you food for the trip?" Linda asked. "Goldfish crackers and juice boxes." Linda wrote everything down. "I called Mark directly at 12:34 p.m. He answered on the first ring. 'Morgan, what the hell is happening? Rachel just told me the kids are with police. She put them in a taxi to my address, except she got the address wrong. They were dropped at a stranger's house. The homeowner found them crying on her porch and called 911. Jesus Christ. Mark's voice went tight, angry. I never would have gone along with this if I'd known. She told me you'd agreed to watch them. She said it was all arranged. I explicitly told her no on Thursday. I have a work conference. We're coming back right now. I'm so sorry, Morgan. I had no idea she'd do something this reckless. Just get back here. The police are filing charges. Charges? Child endangerment? Abandonment? Maybe more. Silence then. Good. She deserves it. My mother called at 3:17 p.m. I almost didn't answer, but ignoring mom only made things worse. Morgan Elizabeth Carter, what have you done? Not, are the kids okay? Not, thank God you were there. Just immediate accusation. What have I done, Mom? Rachel put 2 small children in a taxi to the wrong address and left them at a stranger's house. I'm at a police station because a detective called me. Your sister made a mistake. One mistake. And you're going to tear this family apart over it? She endangered her own children because I refused to help. If you just watched them like she asked, none of this would have happened. My hands clenched around the phone. I had a work commitment, a conference I paid for 6 months ago. I'm allowed to say no. Family comes before work, Morgan. You've always been so selfish, so focused on your career. Meanwhile, your sister is trying to keep her marriage alive, and you can't spare one weekend to help. She put Jake and Emma in danger. Don't you understand that? They could have been kidnapped, hurt, killed because Rachel was too entitled to verify an address or find an actual babysitter. You're being dramatic. I'm being honest. And if you can't see how serious this is, then you're part of the problem. I hung up. My hands were shaking. Emma was still in my lap, half asleep now. Jake was coloring at the table with crayons Linda had given him. They were safe. That was all that mattered. Rachel and Mark arrived at the police station at 9:23 p.m. 11 hours after Detective Barnes's call. They'd driven straight back from Napa, though Rachel looked like she'd taken time to change clothes and fix her makeup. Mark looked exhausted, angry, done. Rachel looked like a victim preparing for a performance. Detective Barnes met them in the lobby. I stayed in the family room with the kids, watched through the window. Rachel was crying, gesturing, playing the devastated mother. Mark was stone-faced. After 37 minutes, Detective Barnes came to get me. We're releasing the children to their father. Mrs. Morrison is being charged with child endangerment and reckless conduct. She'll be arraigned Monday morning. Mr. Morrison has indicated he's consulting with a divorce attorney. Good. We'll need a full statement from you. Everything you remember about the phone call Thursday. Her behavior. Any previous incidents of neglect or recklessness. I'll give you whatever you need. I took Jake and Emma out to Mark's car. Rachel tried to approach. I stepped between her and the kids. Don't. They're my children, who you abandoned at a stranger's house. Get away from them. Mark took the kids to the car. Buckled them in. Emma was crying. Jake looked confused. Rachel turned on me. Mascara running now. Voice sharp. This is your fault. All of it. If you just helped. If I'd just let you walk all over me like always. You mean if I'd canceled my conference and dropped everything because you demanded it? That's what you wanted. But I said no. And you decided to endanger your own children to punish me. I made a mistake. You wrote down the wrong address. You didn't verify it. You didn't confirm I was home. You put 2 small children in a taxi alone and sent them to a place that didn't exist. That's not a mistake. That's neglect. She slapped me right there in the police station parking lot. Mark grabbed her arm. Rachel, stop. We're leaving now. He put her in the passenger seat. Didn't say goodbye to me, just drove away with my niece and nephew in the back seat. Detective Barnes had watched the whole thing from the entrance. You want to press charges for the assault? No. I want you to make sure those kids are safe. We will. The custody battle started 4 days later. Mark's lawyer, Jennifer Wu, family law attorney, 19 years experience, called me at 2:47 p.m. on Wednesday. Miss Carter, my client is filing for emergency sole custody based on the police report and CPS recommendation. We may need you to testify about what happened Saturday and any history of similar behavior from Mrs. Morrison. Whatever you need. Can you document previous instances where your sister demonstrated poor judgment or endangered the children? I thought about it. There was a time last year when she left them in the car in a parking lot while she ran into Target. Said it was just 5 minutes. Someone called the police. Nothing happened because she got back before they arrived. Do you have proof of that? Text messages. She complained to me about a nosy bystander who threatened to call cops. I told her she shouldn't leave them alone in the car. She said I was overreacting. Send me screenshots. Anything else? She's asked me to babysit last minute probably 20 times in the past year. Always with guilt trips and manipulation. Always because she deserves a break. Never because of actual emergencies. Document everything. Dates if you remember them. Text messages, emails, voicemails. We're building a pattern. The emergency custody hearing was held on November 3rd at 10 a.m. in family court. Small courtroom. Wood paneling. Hired flags. Judge Margaret Rivera presiding. 27 years on the bench. Reputation for not tolerating nonsense. Rachel wore a white dress, soft makeup, hair perfectly styled. The picture of a devoted mother having one bad day. Her lawyer, David Park, 15 years experience, expensive, painted her as a victim of circumstances. Your Honor, my client made an error in judgment during a stressful time. She transposed numbers in an address. It was an honest mistake. She never intended to harm her children. Judge Rivera didn't look impressed. She sent 2 minors, ages 4 and 6, alone in a taxi to an unverified address. It was a family member's address that she hadn't confirmed, that she wrote down incorrectly, and didn't follow up to ensure they arrived safely. Your Honor, this was one incident. One incident that put 2 children at risk of abduction, injury, or death. Jennifer Wu stood. Your Honor, if I may, this wasn't Mrs. Morrison's first incident of poor judgment. We have documentation of a previous incident where she left the children unattended in a vehicle. We have testimony from Ms. Morgan Carter, the children's aunt, documenting a pattern of manipulative behavior and last-minute demands for child care. And we have the police report and CPS evaluation from the abandonment incident. I'd like to hear from Ms. Carter. I stood, walked to the witness stand, sworn in. Jennifer asked me to walk through what happened. I told the story methodically. The conference I'd registered for in April. Rachel's phone call Thursday demanding I cancel. My clear refusal. The call from Detective Barnes Saturday morning. Finding Jake and Emma at the police station. Terrified. Did Mrs. Morrison verify your address before sending the children? Judge Rivera asked. No, Your Honor. If she had, she would have realized Oak Street and Oak Avenue are different locations in different neighborhoods. Did she confirm you would be home to receive them? No. She knew I was at a conference. I told her that explicitly on Thursday, and yet she sent them anyway. Yes. David Park tried to cross-examine. Miss Carter, isn't it true you and your sister have a contentious relationship? We have a complicated relationship, but that doesn't change what happened Saturday. You refused to help your sister when she asked. I set a boundary. I had a work commitment. She chose to ignore that boundary and endanger her children rather than respect it. Judge Rivera held up her hand. I've heard enough, Mr. Park. Your client's decisions speak for themselves. Detective Barnes testified next. Walk through the police report. The 911 call from the homeowner, finding Jake and Emma crying on a stranger's porch. The 3 hours they'd been alone before anyone figured out what happened. In your professional opinion, Detective Barnes, did Mrs. Morrison's actions constitute child endangerment? Absolutely, Your Honor. She sent 2 minors, one of them 4 years old, alone in a taxi to an incorrect address without verifying their safe arrival. If the homeowner hadn't been decent and called police, those children could have been abducted, injured, or worse. Linda Vasquez from CPS testified. The children were traumatized when we interviewed them. Jake kept asking if they were in trouble. Emma was afraid her mother was mad at her. Neither child understood why they had been left alone. The taxi company provided records. The driver, who'd since been terminated, had accepted unaccompanied minors against company policy. Rachel had given an address written on a sticky note, 425 Oak Street. No apartment number, no zip code, no phone number, just those 3 pieces of information and 2 small children. Judge Rivera's face was stone throughout the testimony. When everyone had finished, she looked at Rachel. Mrs. Morrison, you sent your children alone in a taxi to an unverified address after being explicitly told your sister was unavailable. You didn't confirm they arrived safely. You didn't provide complete contact information. You prioritized your convenience over your children's safety. This demonstrates severe neglect and a fundamental disregard for child welfare. Rachel started crying. I made a mistake. One mistake. I love my children, I'm sure you do. But love isn't enough when it's accompanied by this level of recklessness. Judge Rivera looked at her notes. I'm granting Mr. Morrison temporary full custody. Mrs. Morrison will have supervised visitation only twice per week pending completion of parenting classes and family counseling. We'll reconvene in 6 months to assess progress. The gavel struck at 11:47 a.m. Rachel blamed me for everything. Called me screaming that afternoon. You destroyed my marriage. You stole my children. You're a vindictive, jealous bitch who couldn't stand seeing me happy. You put Jake and Emma in a taxi to the wrong address and left them at a stranger's house. I didn't do that. You did because you refused to help. Because I had a work commitment. Because I'm allowed to say no. Because family doesn't mean I have to drop everything whenever you demand it. You'll regret this. I swear to God, you'll regret this. She hung up. My mother called 10 minutes later. Are you happy now? You've destroyed your sister's life. Mom, she endangered her own children. She lost custody because of her choices, not mine. You testified against your own sister in court. I told the truth. That's all I did. Family protects family, Morgan. You were supposed to have Rachel's back, and she was supposed to protect her children. She didn't. So now someone else has too. Those kids need their mother. Those kids need safety. They need someone who won't abandon them at a stranger's house because they didn't get their way. I don't even know who you are anymore. I'm someone who protects children even when it costs me my family. I hung up. The supervised visitation reports came through Mark's lawyer 6 weeks later. Rachel spent most visits on her phone. Complained about the custody arrangement. Barely engaged with Jake or Emma. The supervisor's notes were damning. Mother appears more concerned with proving she's a victim than connecting with children. Minimal interaction. Children seem reluctant to engage. Mark forwarded me one of Rachel's texts from that period. These visits are humiliating. That supervisor treats me like a criminal and the kids barely talk to me. Emma actually asked when she gets to see Morgan again. He'd responded, maybe spend less time on your phone and more time actually talking to your daughter. 3 months later, Mark filed for permanent custody. The hearing was shorter this time. Judge Rivera reviewed the visitation reports. Rachel's attendance in parenting classes sporadic. Her counseling compliance minimal. Mrs. Morrison, you've had 3 months to demonstrate insight and accountability. The reports suggest you've done neither. You continue to blame external factors rather than examining your own choices. Your Honor, I'm trying. Are you? Because the supervised visitation reports indicate you spend most of your time on your phone or complaining rather than engaging with your children. Rachel had no answer. Judge Rivera granted Mark permanent custody. Rachel got continued supervised visitation, now reduced to once per week. Last week, 8 months after everything started, Emma made me a card at school. Mark texted me a photo at 3:47 p.m. construction paper, crayon drawings, stick figures holding hands. The text said, "You saved us," at Morgan. With hearts everywhere, I cried in my office for 20 minutes. Rachel can hate me forever. She probably will. Mom hasn't spoken to me in 6 months. I lost my family, or at least the family I thought I had. But Jake and Emma are safe. They're thriving. They have stability and a father who puts them first. And sometimes when Emma video calls me before bed to say good night or when Jake sends me pictures of his latest Lego creation, I know I made the right choice. Those kids deserve someone who'd protect them. Even when it cost me everything. Even when my own family turned against me. Because at the end of the day, that's what love actually is. Not convenience, not obligation, not blind loyalty to people who make dangerous choices. Just protection, safety, showing up when it matters. Rachel sent them to the wrong address, but I made sure they never ended up at the wrong place again.